This Prime Minister and his government say all the right things when it comes to taking care of our environment. The problem is their actions never match their rhetoric. They'll promise to plant billions of trees, but instead give billions to big oil. I hope the government will finally start listening to people, including those who signed the petition, and bring in just transition legislation that, among other things, reduces emissions by 60%, ends fossil fuel subsidies, creates good green jobs, respects Indigenous sovereignty, and ensures that this just transition is paid for by the billionaire class through the establishment of a wealth tax.
I will say that we know that as the economic situation of many Canadians becomes more and more difficult, unfortunately, the government's actions are only compounding that situation. If you go to any rural or northern community here in our region and elsewhere, you will hear the same thing. The growing season is shorter, weather is more unpredictable, and yet following a long tradition of previous Liberal and Conservative governments, the current one sits idly by, destroying our planet one oil subsidy at a time, lacking the courage to even use the term just transition, much less put into practice the need to remake our economy into one where everyone thrives. Instead, it's farmers, Northerners, Indigenous communities who are the first to pay the price for government inaction. This needs to change.
Which is why we're unsurprised that this budget is woefully inadequate when it comes to combating the climate crisis. For the 2023-2024 period, only $14 billion are allocated to climate-related spending efforts, which is insultingly low when compared to the 2% of GDP we need to address the scale, the magnitude of the climate emergency.
Speaker, communities need to be ready before a crisis hits, not after. It took years for the Liberals to finally announce a climate adaptation strategy, a strategy that even they deem insufficient. It is underfunded and fails to deliver the urgent help communities need to face the catastrophic impacts of the climate crisis. We need to use every tool at our disposal, including changing the way Canada's infrastructure bank does its work. Indigenous and Northern communities are already bearing the brunt of climate change. Why are the Liberals shortchanging regions like ours?
Most of the spending in this Liberal budget is in the form of tax breaks and subsidies to corporations, rather than direct investments in proven emission reduction projects. If we could tax break wealthy corporations to solve the climate crisis, it would have been done already. Believe me, it's literally the only solution. Liberals try and try again. But we need to be real. The climate crisis is nothing to take lightly. Canadians need a plan that will funnel funds into publicly owned, sustainable energy projects that will reduce our carbon emissions long-term, such as investments in public transit, renewable energy projects, and infrastructure that makes sense and protects our communities.